welcome to the IndieWire Studio. Thank you so much for being here to discuss such a fascinating film, one that's rooted both in, the identification of a trope that we all know has existed on screen for a long time, but that, Kobi, I think you have recognized speaks to much deeper issues in American culture, speaks to a lot that's beyond the stereotypes that have been on screen as well. Could you speak a little bit to that inspiration?
Yeah, I mean, as you're saying, it all starts with the magical Negro trope, but as much as anything, what I am doing with it beyond just critiquing the trope and its sort of shortcomings is using it as a way in to talk about a very particular defense mechanism that I was taught as a Black person to keep myself safe in America by being accommodating to powerful white people.
It's this idea that, above all else, the comfort and safety and security of white people is paramount, and no matter what, you always have to code switch to enable that. Mm-hmm. And I know Spike Lee coined the term
and copyrighted it.
That is something he would do, but it's fascinating when you consider those larger implications too, and that you can even recognize from your own life, many times in which you've played into that. You felt compelled by society to play into that.
I have a question for all of us. Has a white person ever come to you and complained about the magical Negro trope that they're tired of seeing in movies? I'm being serious.
No, I don't think
no,
so.
I've never. And as a matter of fact, it is like crack to white people. It is like crack because I see it repeatedly.
Yeah. It's
you
won
put the
Best
magical
Picture a couple of times.
I told you I was trying to get that role, man. They won't give it to me. But no, I mean, you say what you want, but if you go to a packed theater, it is crack.
Well, it's one of the things people talk about the magical Negro trope is that it's a happy slave trope, right? And what that is it's a trope that imagines Black people just love fitting ourselves into existing power structures. Right?
Well, it's everything we're living through right now.
Yeah.
Slavery was beneficial.
Right, yeah.
There are laws being passed right now today to accuse someone of being racist. They can sue you for defamation.
Right, yeah.
So,
yeah.
That's crazy.
So Justice, your character, Aaron, he's a visual artist, and suddenly he is recruited for the American Society of Magical Negroes. Mm-hmm. And how does he get into this? And basically, what is his job description? What are the functions of this job? On a day-to-day basis? Yeah,
his job is to, he's assigned a client, and his job is to make this client comfortable, specifically clients who have a low white tears meter, which means that they're more fragile than the rest, and closer to exploding or acting out. So he's assigned to this one client, Jason, who works for this tech company. Yeah, and then it's a fairly easy job for him because he's been so accommodating to white people his whole life. But then when his interests start to conflict with his client's interests, then things start to get a little tricky.
But of course, the members of the society also literally do have supernatural powers, right? Mm-hmm. What are some of these powers?
They can only be used in service of the client, but they range from anything from making things appear out of thin air, from knowing where white people are at any given moment, from teleporting. From
floating. Oh, you just say floating in the air? Yeah.
Wait, floating. Oh yeah, floating in the air. A hyper awareness of white people's comfort levels.
There is some, isn't telepathy? Because
do we have
kind of go, well, yeah.
There's a little bit. Go ahead.
Yeah, because when the white guy, I stop him. I know what you're thinking. We're going to this. Mm-hmm. We're going to this club. Stuff like that.
Yeah, or I make the bouncer think that he's someone he's not.
There's a little bit of Jedi mind trick.
Jedi mind trick.
Some Jedi mind trick energy.
Yeah.
Which I felt you should have let us go more
Or Men in Black, like Flash. Yeah. You should make a solid list. Like, you know how they do for comic books? Like they like write out the superpowers of each. You should write down the exact powers. Because it is a little. It is
what the world wants to know.
It is a little big. It is a little bit like they can do anything as long as it's in service of their client.
I did pitch to Kobi that I had like a little billy club, so I just smack somebody right at the base of their neck, and that kind of snaps them or knocks them out.
Right.
He didn't go for it.
It's, next movie.
Yes, part 2.
So David, is your character more of like a veteran member of the society? And so do you give advice to Justice's character, Aaron?
Well, no, I recruit him into this society. And at one point, I believe in what we're doing. I believe in it, and that we're a necessary force in this world. Now, there's one question that I ask myself, but I didn't ever bring it up, is why, if this society is so good, why is the state of the world what it is? And I have already answered within myself, imagine if we weren't here. I mean, that's the same as you ask a Christian, if there's God, why is there war? Well, imagine if there was no God. The circular answer, that type of thing.
Yeah. And just to say it out loud, it's a satire.
Of course.
Like to think that's a. Did I not mention that to you guys? It's a.
No, you did not.
But that's part of the critique too, right? Is that these defense mechanisms that I was taught that American society and structural racism might encourage in us Black people, they don't feel good to us, obviously, but they also ultimately won't keep us safe. And that's part of the critique of the film, is that being a magical Negro, even if the society asks you to do that, is not ultimately a way to keep you safe, because these forces are too powerful and too dangerous.
I mean, making it a comedy, it feels like an essential way to express what is something that's really painful ultimately, because there are so many implications here about, if it's all about making sure that white people are comfortable, then that essentially is kind of saying that Black people can't be the main character of many stories a lot of times. There's so many other implications, but was this always going to be a comedy?
Yeah, I mean, but I think you're right on it. So yes, it was always going to be a comedy, and it's really embarrassing to talk about. It's really embarrassing to say out loud, hey, even one time I, accommodated this white person at the expense of my own self-interest. That's just an embarrassing thing to admit as a Black person. We would all much rather look in the mirror and see a powerful Black revolutionary than somebody that ever compromised, right? And so the humor, quite specifically, is what makes it bearable for me to look at these sort of embarrassing defense mechanisms that I've engaged in. But part of what I hope that humor and that the sort of the ease of that does for Black audiences is to pivot the blame, where it's not my fault or Black people's fault if they have ever made this choice, right? It is not their fault. It is the fault of a system that coerced them into doing so.
Well,
it's so funny because I felt in my personal life, like I remember growing up and like being with these white kids, and like I can see in their eyes that I was their Black best friend. Like I was like the supporting character in their life.
Yeah.
And like I remember, and maybe that's why I'm an actor today. I remember just being like, when is it my turn to be, in the spotlight? Like, when is it my turn to like go through my issues and focus on my issues? I'm actually having a crazy revelation like right now in my life. I'm on a journal tonight.
But I bet, haven't we all had that moment? I remember when there was the uprising, the riot in Los Angeles, and at the time I lived in this condo, this townhome, and most of my neighbors predominantly were Korean. I remember they all came over to my house. David, may we talk to you? And I was like, oh boy. I said, explain to us what's going on. And I had a gig and I was leaving town. So it came off like, I don't know, but run. So I got in the car and drove away. But it was like, no, I can't speak for the entire diaspora, man. Don't tell me. what am I supposed to say? You know?
But that, yeah, I think that comes up a lot though, right? Where we're asked to stand in for all black people everywhere. You know,
George Floyd is another key moment where I got emails or phone calls, which is, you know, I can speak for myself. I can't speak for everybody.
But it's so hard to like have to deal with it every single
it's weary
day, and then have to explain it, and then have to like be put together and articulate, and you know, and
it's racial
explain it in
HR.
a way.
Really, it's racial HR.
Explain it in a way that's not emotional, like
not
it doesn't.
Not you.
Every day.
Everybody else.
Yeah, everyone else. Yeah.
We want to kill all of them. Not you though. Not you. We're good.
You definitely don't need to make me feel comfortable. It's fine. It's fine. You know, but actually, to that point, I had a bit of a laugh, but I can imagine it was dismaying too. That like I saw Justice and David that both of you were accosted by a TMZ reporter in an airport, basically just to ask you, is it okay for white people to say the title of the film?
The name of the movie.
I was actually personally astounded. I'm like, now you're worried about the wrong N-word.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? No, it's the other N-word, not this one. You can say this one.
It's so funny. We were just talking about this in the car. We were literally just talking about this in the car on the way into this interview. But just to talk about it as a writer for a second, part of what this film is about the discrepancy between black comfort moving through the world and white comfort moving through the world, right? And as a satirist, I find it delicious that to navigate the title of this film, every single white person has a moment of discomfort, right? Because, you know, and this is what we're literally talking about, it's double consciousness, right?
Yes.
It's like, welcome to double consciousness. Double consciousness being, you're thinking in two brains, basically. You're thinking in your own brain, and you're also thinking in the language of the dominant society. How is the way I would move through the world organically going to be received? And most white people have never had to do that. We do that all the time. Right? But around this title, you have white people, in many cases for the first time in their life, thinking, well, I might just say this word, no problem, but hold on, what would this other group of people think? And the idea of having to juggle those two consciousnesses at the same time is a really new and rattling experience for a lot of white people. Yeah. And that's quite deliberately part of the satire. And as uncomfortable as that might be for white people, I say welcome.
Yeah. You know, on a micro level, my dog is named Pickles. The breed of this dog is a blue tick coonhound. All I have to do is when this happens repeatedly. Oh, Pickles is so cute. What kind of dog is he? Ma'am, he's a blue tick coonhound. And what I hear back is, I love blue tick hounds. I'm like, say it. You can say it.
Come on, see what happens.
Blue tick hounds.
I love it. Yeah.
Well, it's just that to have a level of discomfort about the title of this film is like, so like when you were being asked that, it was like, so he's either asking you for permission to say the title, so that's one way of being comforted, or he's asking for permission to not have to say the title, which is another way of being comforted. Like both things.
Both things are, and all of them are ways of centering their own experience in the film.
It's a lose-lose for us.
You know, yeah. But also it's like I do find it instructive, right? That if a white person encounters the title of the film and their first thought is, how does it make me feel? How am I going to be comforted or not comforted? How can I be comfortable moving through the world with this title? That's the first place they go. And I just think that's interesting. That's all I'll say about that.
Well, you know, everybody wants to be on the hip team too. Like a few years back, like, you know, young men were stepping up to the mic left and right, proclaiming themselves feminists. In which most of them didn't really know what that meant. And in terms of how you maneuver through this world on a day-to-day basis. And when they're called out, it was infuriating. You know, so everybody wants to be in the hip words. I want to be in the hip club.